the Sustainability Management Master's Program, you are answering one simple question. Do you care about your future generation? If you care about your kids, their grandkids, then you care about sustainability. And a sustainability manager is someone who has the tools to make people understand how they can contribute towards developing a sustainable world. We have both part-time and full-time students. Our curriculum is 30 hours. Instead of thesis, we have a research project course and a seminar course which provides them with the kind of research background they will need to be successful in their job. At the same time, sustainability is not always everything about environment. It also relates to the business. They will take a sustainable business strategies course. They will take a project management course. Most of these courses are going to be taught by industry people, the people who are doing sustainability on a daily basis as a part of their job. Any organization that has a large number of employees and has a physical infrastructure, they will have to have a sustainability office. If you have the passion to develop and maintain a sustainable world, come to us and we will help you shape your passion into a career which will create an impact.
This seminar is sponsored by BEM Systems, Brown & Codwell, and brought to you by the Stevens Institute Center for Environmental Systems.
Thanks. So I'm going to talk about sustainability. I'm going to try to include just about everything that I heard you were interested in. From my point of view, sustainability is not a thing, it's a way. Sustainability is not a new concept. It's been around since 1987 with Gro Harlem Brundtland in the Brundtland Report. Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So it really is about the future. And because it's about the future and because you are the future, that's why I think students like to study sustainability, because it is what you create. Here's why I say that it's not a thing. You don't get to be sustainable and stop. Sustainability is a way to approach problems. It's a way of melding the environmental issues with the social issues, with economics. It's not, you don't attain this fixed state of harmony. You don't get to a place, okay, I'm sustainable now. I'm done. There is no done. You always have to be working in a change management way in how you look at resources, you direct your investments, how you look at technological development, all of you engineers, and institutional change. I know. Institutional change. Again, consistent with future as well as present needs. We need stuff now. Maybe not as much stuff as we have, but we need stuff now. But we want to make sure that there is remaining enough for future generations. So it's more of an intention, and it's like a physical thing that you have goods and services. But it's also an aspirational issue. Hey, Chris.
Hey, what's going on? Excuse me.
So the aspirational issue is how I bring in some of the social issues, like access to education, like systems of justice, and like healthcare. And then it's strategic, because we cannot have a just society that treats everyone with respect without looking at human rights, racial equality, gender equity, labor relations, conservation. I group those social issues together. So when you say, I'm going to study sustainability, what does that mean? To me, sustainability becomes the meta-discipline. It's a set of skills. It incorporates a lot of different disciplines. So it is inherently interdisciplinary. And when I asked about a number of your backgrounds, this room is inherently interdisciplinary. We hone our ideas about sustainability through discussion. So even though I'm up here and I have the clicker and I have slides, I expect that you will challenge me and ask me questions, and that's fine. We use case studies to study what has worked. Case studies are even better when you can get them where somebody will talk about what didn't work. I teach a class in food waste, and in that class, we had talked a lot about, how good it was to have composting facilities. And I brought in a speaker who talked about a fat rendering facility in Newark. It's called Berkowitz Fat. And it became actually a Superfund cleanup because the person accepted all kinds of meat waste. It was processed in an open building, open windows, open facility. The whole neighborhood smelled. It was its own ecosystem. When the emergency response guys had to go in to clean it up, they said what they walked through was what they called meat mud. There were maggots and other things just throughout the whole facility, rats running everywhere. It was just really an abomination to have in the neighborhood. And the neighbors were all thrilled that DEP cleaned it up. So you can say, we should recycle food waste. But you got to be a little bit careful about how you're doing it. The case study of something that didn't work became more important for our class to study than all the things that did work. Because that's what regulations are based on, what doesn't work. So I use experience, I tell stories, and I tell other people's stories too. So we should learn together, and you have to be comfortable with ambiguity, uncertainty, paradoxes. So when I say that we're going to teach somebody about sustainability, I don't know. I know it can be learned, but I'm not sure it can be taught. I think the way to learn it is for you to actively learn it, to try out stuff, see what works, see what doesn't. At the School of Environment and Biological Sciences, Cook Campus at Rutgers, our sustainability minor is the fastest growing minor on campus, and it is associated with 15 different majors. Why is that? Because sustainability is not a thing that you study. It's a perspective in how you look at agriculture and food systems, or in the business school, how you deal with organizational dynamics and finance. It is an issue for ecology, evolution, and natural resources. You forestry people. Environmental planning and design, landscape architecture, rain gardens, environmental policies, institutions, and behavior. It's behavior. And I am going to talk about behavior in my talk today. Environmental science, it's my background. Fisheries. We have a fabulous fisheries program at Rutgers. Sustainable fisheries is a thing. You overfish, it's not sustainable. You don't factor in climate change. The fish that you think are going to be there are not there because they've gone someplace else because the water's warm. So food science, marine science, meteorology, plant biology, public health, they're all things that are associated with our sustainability minor. Students will have a deep knowledge of one subject, we'll say fisheries, and then a broad knowledge of sustainability that can overlay that. You've all seen the sustainability paradigm, and that's one way of looking at sustainability. We use it because the issues of our time are not the issues that I faced when I was an environmental scientist in the 70s and 80s. Hypoxic conditions in coastal regions are complex. There isn't one solution that's going to work there. Ozone depletion, urbanization and sprawl, social equality, global climate change, ocean acidification, loss of biodiversity. Really complex issues. It's not going to be solved by one person. It's not going to be solved by one solution. It's going to be solved by all of us together. The old approaches were one media at a time. Let's regulate water pollution. Okay, now let's regulate air pollution. Okay, now let's regulate waste. Things don't stick to the media. Things move throughout the ecosystem. Those old approaches don't work because problems have multiple causes and multiple impacts. Some people are affected more than other people. Who's affected by climate change? Everyone, but who's affected more than others or faster than others? People on the equator. Who else? Farmers. Who else? Coastal cities. Small island nations. How much choice do they have in moving out and going someplace else? Not much. Yeah, what else? Yeah. So I thought that you might bring up forest fires. Good. Good point. See how sharp he is? Because we've had some forest fires that are evidence of kind of drought and climate change, not necessarily raking the forests, but, issues with forests and droughts and floods, and I could go on and on. They affect some people more than others, generally the poorer folks. To solve them is economically demanding. There's high uncertainty in the components, in the outcomes. There's not always a defined end solution. How will we know when we have solved a drought problem? I mean, New Jersey's had droughts. I can remember having water restrictions, and we could only water on even and odd days, depending on so forth. We're out of that drought, but could another drought occur? Absolutely. And you won't know about it till you're in the drought, basically. And so a lot of these require interdisciplinary solutions. Solutions that involve finance and organizational behavior and water and some great technology that's designed by engineers. We have a lot of laws on the books about environmental protection. And, they really peaked in this time frame, 70s, 80s, 90s, but they were things that were, again, kind of media by media. Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, Safe Drinking Water Act. One thing at a time. But one thing at a time is not going to solve our issues now. So we need a regulatory structure, maybe even a societal structure that's flexible, that's adaptive. You try something, it seems to work, you try it a little more. Plastic bag bans? You try something, people seem to adjust. Okay, let's widen that. Let's do more communities. Adaptive, cross-media, definitely. Our microplastics problem, is it a problem that is a water problem? An air problem? A waste problem? Maybe a circular economy issue that you need to think about before you manufacture what you're going to do with it when it's finished its useful life? Yeah, we need global solutions because that big garbage patch in the ocean is not caused by one country. We need systems approach, life cycle approach. You're probably learning life cycle analysis. We need to integrate kind of all of these approaches and get all of these disciplines working together. So if regulatory solutions are not, regulatory solutions generally look at, is there a polluter? Let's stop what's coming out of that plant. Put a limit on their emissions. Not really something that's going to solve all of our issues now. Maybe what we need is to change the culture. So, what do you think the world should look like? And how do you make decisions to change from the way things are to the way things they ought to be? So I'm going to take an everyday decision. You need new socks. It's really called out, socks help. What socks do you buy? Tell me what goes into your decision making about a new pair of socks. Anybody? Go ahead.
Does it have to relate to sustainability, or can it be?
It can be
We're straight up talking about coal.
straight up talking about you need new socks.
Make some wool socks.
Wool socks. Okay.
Durable socks.
Durable socks. Okay.
Cost.
The cost of the socks, yep. What else? Style. Yeah. What? Length. Okay, yes. Oh, I got out of my box. Okay. Yes.
If we're talking about sustainability, I think Wigwam has like recycled polyester socks.
Recycled polyester socks. Yeah. Yeah, okay, good. What else?
Comfort.
Comfort. Absolutely.
Usage.
Usage, okay.
Accessibility.
Accessibility, yeah.
Natural versus synthetic.
Yes.
Where they're produced.
Yes. So if I were thinking about the material that the sock is made of, we'll just start with materials. Is it cotton or is it wool? If it's cotton, is it grown with or without pesticides? Is it organic cotton or is it, factory farmed cotton? Who is picking the cotton? with wool. So there's animals involved. How do you manage their manure? Or, animals are animals. They have to eat, and they poop. Sheep have a lifespan. What do you do with an old sheep? How many years do you get wool from that sheep before he's dinner or something? Yeah. Or bamboo. What about bamboo socks? They have bamboo socks now. I like bamboo socks. Fast-growing fiber, suitable for socks, not itchy. Wool. People can be allergic to wool. Don't worry about allergies. Dyes. So somebody talked about the color of the socks and the style of the socks and the length of the socks. And yeah, so dyes can affect the environment in various ways. Where are the socks manufactured? And if it's overseas, how do they get from there to here? Oh, but you mentioned accessibility. You buying them online, or are you going to go to the store? Which do you think is more sustainable? Amazon? Or are you going to support the local economy in Hoboken and go to a mom and pop store in Hoboken?
Just go yourself.
You could knit your socks yourself. Wow. Okay.
Is that what you wanted to say?
No, I was going to say you could just go yourself.
You could. You
I
could.
mean, I feel like that would have less of a carbon footprint than just ordering them off of Amazon or something.
Yeah, well, so that's an interesting trade-off and maybe something that you want to look at in terms of a life cycle analysis. But if you have one person who goes to 3 stores to shop for socks, doesn't buy them till the 3rd store, they got their own footprint going on, versus online, you buy 5 pair of socks at once, they're delivered in 1 box, that truck is going through your whole neighborhood, dropping off a box at everybody's house, because everybody shops on Amazon. And so then, what is it, which is better? I'm not so sure that, of course, if you walk down to the corner store, but where does the store get their supplies from? And we haven't even talked about the labor involved, except for knitting yourself, which I think is a good idea. But the labor involved, and are they paid a living wage? Where is the labor coming from? Is it fair trade certified? Is anybody looking at this labor? So let's see. Nylon, cotton, organic cotton, wool, cotton and spandex. So somebody mentioned durability of socks. Durability of socks is interesting. They have socks now that you're supposed to be able to buy a pair and they're supposed to last for 20 years. Now that's pretty sustainable. I'm not sure I believe it, but but socks which are made of more than one material, it's very difficult to recycle. So that adds in. Bamboo, recycled PET, somebody mentioned recycled. Natural dye, online, go to a store. Chain store, the neighborhood, small business. Union shop. Oh, nobody mentioned whether it's a union shop. Like, is it the International Ladies Garment Worker Union that has made your socks? Are you a union supporter and you say so with your socks? Locally made. So these are all decisions. And then you have to think about your decision and how does it fit within a framework. So one of the frameworks that I like to use is the bless you, is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There were 8 Millennium Development Goals. We got only so far with those, and we're now in the era of the Sustainable Development Goals. You familiar with these goals? Say yes or no. Yes, okay. Here's another framework, and this is an economics framework. Have you seen this one before? Yeah, well, yeah, I know you did. So another framework is this Doughnut economics. Say yes or no. Not him. No. Okay. So Kay Raworth is an economist from the United Kingdom. And she looked at a way to picture how social issues are related to environmental issues. And she came up with the Doughnut. She said that the social foundation includes making sure that there's gender equality, social equity, energy, jobs, voice, like, you know, when you vote, it matters kind of thing. Resilience, education, income, food, water, health. Those are all the social foundations. We have to satisfy this for our society to go forward. And then she looked at the environmental ceiling, which is kind of the carrying capacity of the Earth, where we look at ozone depletion, biodiversity loss, land use changes, climate change, freshwater use, the nitrogen cycle, phosphorus, ocean acidification, chemical pollution, and atmospheric loading. So she had an environmental ceiling. And she said, where humanity, instead of measuring our progress in economics through the gross domestic product, which is pretty much what we use, what's the GDP doing, or the stock market, she said, the safe and just space for humanity is where we have enough food, education, so forth, but not so much that we're exceeding our environmental ceiling. You get that? We're living in the donut. We got donuts right here. That's where we're supposed to live, in the donut. Now, this actually is where we are, by Kate Raworth's metrics. Biodiversity loss off the chart. Change out there. Land conversion. What do we mean by land conversion?
Changing it into possible farm use or taking down for cities.
Sure. Right, so we eradicate those forests that he's so fond of, and we use it for agriculture, or we take the fields that are agricultural and we build suburbs on them, and then we take the suburbs and we build... Yes. So land conversion, nitrogen and phosphorus loading. That's what is contributing to eutrophication in all of our coastal areas. And social foundation, well, we produce enough food for everyone to have enough, but it is not distributed in such a way that we all have enough. Health, there is a shortfall. Peace and justice, we have a shortfall. Political voice, social equity, gender equality, housing, networks, energy, water, food, all of these things. We are not satisfying all of the people. And yet, we have already exceeded the environmental, the ecological ceiling. So we can kind of envision the problem. Like, this gives us a way of saying, oh yeah, social issues are related to environmental issues, but now we have to solve it. Okay, so You making me hungry? Oh, let's talk about donuts. How do you buy granola bars? What are your considerations? What? Oh. The which? Healthier ones, okay, yeah. So what's healthier? How do you measure it? Less calories or made with nuts, has protein? Less sugar, okay. What else? Cost. Yeah, cost is big, yeah.
Anything that's not Nature Valley. So many crumbs.
Oh, yeah. So the crumb potential, I get it, yes. I know. Yeah. Yeah. Chocolate, like chocolate, maybe. Yeah. What else?
It'll get stuck in your teeth, so I would say not chocolate.
Okay, all right. Non-chocolate, okay? That's okay. Because the chocolate, of course, you have to worry about where it's sourced. Is it fair trade chocolate? And yeah.
Any like certifications? Like
Certification,
organic or
right?
fair trade?
Yep. Yep. Good. Anything else? Yeah.
The processing of it, the manufacturing of it.
Manufacturing, processing, yes. Which also gets to where was it manufactured? Is it a local company? And and how do you obtain it? Are you ordering your granola bars on Amazon or are you going to the local store? Anything else? Yeah.
Going off of what he said, I was going to say if you can pronounce all of the ingredients.
Right. Yes, sure. Yeah. No, that's, yeah. Because they have preservatives and so forth. Got it. What else? Thank you. I was waiting for that.
The granola bars are hard. They're pretty uniform.
Well, yeah. So is it paper packaging or is it plastic? And the packaging will influence the length of time that the granola bar is good. So, yeah, you do have to worry about packaging. And like plastic will extend the shelf life of your granola bar. Just saying. Anything else? Let's see if we got them all. Pesticides, did we talk about? We did. We mentioned organic. GMO. Nobody brought up that one, okay? Responsibly harvested. So nuts. Nuts are a good protein to have in your granola bar, but the growing of nuts is very water intensive, and many times they're grown in drought areas. The almonds from California are kind of, that's the poster child for too much water usage and so forth. Transport, we got that one. Processing, you got that one. Packaging, expiration date. Make them yourself. We talked about knitting with the socks, but what about you could make granola bars. You definitely can. Flavor, yes, we had flavor. Allergies. We did, yeah, allergies. Big box store, farmers market, internet. So, yeah, there's a lot of choices there, and they all have a bearing on how sustainable it is. Somebody mentioned the labels. Good. So Rainforest Alliance certified or 100% organic. Or maybe you have an expert tell you what to buy. Right? You listen to experts? Who is she? I don't know. Can anybody? Beyonce. Or maybe you want to have a world leader tell you. Maybe you want to listen to a presidential tweet about what to buy. Or maybe you have a spiritual leader. So the Pope could tell you what to buy. News anchor, talk show host, teacher, I could tell you what to buy. Pop culture icon, weatherman. So of all of these, who do you trust to advise you on your purchase? Teacher? Ah, yeah, you had to say that. You just, yeah. Thanks, Chris. But
I don't know if Beyonce goes up there.
I know, Beyonce.
I want to go be one. I don't know her recent. I want to be part of Lemon. I don't know, whatever.
So it's interesting. The most trustworthy, according to a number of studies of human behavior, is the weatherman. And pretty much they're wrong 50% of the time as far as I'm concerned. Nevertheless, they're considered very trustworthy. So there you go. Scaling up. So we talked about how you make decisions yourself and how you buy your socks and how you buy your granola bars, which are just two things I pulled out of the air. But what about your town? How do you make decisions for a town? So you might consider something like, of all the risks that are affecting this population, which ones are the ones I should address? And so we consider Hoboken. What's the biggest risk? Floods? They don't happen that often, though. Every high tide? Okay. What else? Infrastructure? Pardon?
Solid waste,
Okay.
like the recycling.
Yes.
Like that.
Yes, solid waste is a problem? Yeah. Yeah?
Rent prices.
Rent prices, yeah. So when you're considering all of these issues and you're a decision maker for a town, you also have to look at what are we capable of controlling economically, technologically, and politically. The flooding issue is an issue because technologically you could design something, but politically getting it through and affording it are, I don't think the people of Hoboken can pay for what is needed to deal with the flooding issue. So you have to distribute that cost then over all the people in New Jersey or over all the people in the country. And then you're setting up a system that is inequitable. People here are benefiting, people elsewhere are paying for it. Where else does that occur? Anybody go to the beach in the summer? Beach replenishment is done by the Army Corps of Engineers. So basically, it's a lot of money from the whole country that pays for our beaches in New Jersey. Interesting. So sustainability gets into how do you distribute these costs? And the costs are, you mentioned infrastructure. And there is certainly some infrastructure issues in this part of New Jersey in terms of CSOs, water and sewer issues, lead and water issues in Newark. Yeah, so who's going to pay for that? The people that are actually being affected by the lead in the water, or all of the people, either in New Jersey or in the whole country? Interesting. And how do we accommodate competing goals? Because that is really a competing goal. That is taking money from a whole bunch of people and saying, but we're going to spend it here at this priority. And between present and future generations, are you borrowing the money that's going to fix the infrastructure now that we're using, but will be paid for by our kids and their kids? Harder to make those decisions. And some of those decisions come into play with the granola bars and the growing of nuts, and they come into play with the sheep that are making the wool for your socks. So how do we decide in our society? Well, among the many hats that I had, I was in charge of the radiation protection program for New Jersey. Radiation exposure in New Jersey comes from a number of sources, radon being the riskiest one. Next most risky is medical exposure, CT, X-ray, PET scan. The least risky, nuclear power plants. Least risky. But if I looked at my staff, I had a lot of staff that were dedicated to dealing with nuclear emergency response. Because probabilistically, if something goes wrong, and it's a small probability, but a high consequence, you have to be ready to address it. So I always thought, we should make our decisions about staffing based on risk. But then I didn't even do that, or else my entire staff would have been dedicated to radon. Radon. Just to give you some perspective on this, a study that was done by the National Council on Radiation Protection in 2008 found that about 50% of your exposure is radon. And then I think it was 30% was X-ray and medical exposure, and then much smaller industrial, and nuclear power plant 0.001%. But we don't make our decisions based solely on risk. We make them based on public values, and the public is very concerned about nuclear power. So you hear from a bunch of different majors. How many nuclear power plants are in New Jersey? 2? How many? Anybody say, okay, how many say 1? Nobody. 2? 3? 3 are currently operating. There are 4 nuclear power plants. We just closed one. Oyster Creek was just closed. It's the oldest operating nuclear power plant in the United States. It was just closed on September 17th, 2018. That doesn't mean that all the radioactivity, of course, is gone from there. That's why I still count it as a nuclear power plant that is in New Jersey. It's not operational, but all of the spent fuel from the entire operation, and it was commissioned in 1968, began operation in 69, all of that spent fuel is still on site. Because there is no place in the United States that is a repository for spent fuel. So it's all still there. That would be like you having to live with your garbage, everything that you generated from the time you were a baby in diapers. Can you imagine that? Yeah.
Yucca Mountain doesn't accept it?
Yucca Mountain is not operational, no. No, no, no. Yucca Mountain was built and designed to accept spent fuel, but it was blocked from accepting any spent fuel. And so there is no spent fuel in Yucca Mountain at this time. Harry Reid blocked that, the senator from Nevada. There have been a number of other organizations that said we will store spent fuel until you can figure out what to do with it. Interim spent fuel storage facilities is what they call it. One of them was the Skull Valley Band of the Goshoots that said we will accept it on our land in exchange for lots of money. There's a lot of money involved. Skull Valley Band is naturally, as a tribe, they are a sovereign nation, so they said we can accept it. However, the sovereign nation happens to be within the state of Utah, and the governor of Utah said, we will tear up any roads or rails that go to your reservation. You cannot transport it through Utah. And so that didn't go. So they called it a virtual moat around the Skull Valley Band. So right now, all spent fuel is still on these sites. The other site has 3 nuclear power plants, is in South Jersey in Salem County, Salem 1 and 2 and Hope Creek, 2 pressurized water reactors and 1 boiling water reactor. Yes?
5 minutes.
Uh-oh, I got many more things to go. So how do you change things from the way they are to the way way you want them to be? Do you keep making decisions the way you always did, like your socks and your granola bars? Well, we get trapped in our habits. We start ordering from Amazon, and we're always going to order from Amazon. And if we continue to believe what we've always believed and continue to act the way we have always acted, we're going to continue to get what we've always gotten, which has gotten us climate change and all these problems. So we have to take drastic action to stop a catastrophe if we're going to be sustainable. Drastic action, not just incremental action. Drastic action. And so we need to change these mental models that we have that keep us acting the same way. Richard Feynman had a way of doing that, the O-ring guy. And when he was really concentrating on solving a problem, you could actually see muscle movement. Einstein had thoughts before thoughts, which he said were visual and muscular in nature, and that he had this thinking process where before he could even speak about what he was thinking, he had thoughts. So how do I try and get students to have thoughts before thoughts and jog them out of their normal way of thinking? Some of what I do is take them outside the classroom. I take them to sewage treatment plants. I take them to the gardens. I take them to pinelands. I take them to the meadowlands. But sustainability is not just about the environment. So something like seeing art can help you to confront bias. And New Deal art. New Deal's a big thing now, so New Deal. New Deal art changed minds about who was affected by poverty. Sustainability is about culture change. And so we have to teach nonverbal connections between disparate problems. We have to teach disruptive change. One of my assignments to my students is for them to find art, a poem, a song, a painting, and explain how it speaks to them and explain how it changes mind about sustainability. This guy took wood from Hurricane Sandy and makes things out of it. There's a YouTube that you can watch, a Latino video that addresses 5 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This is the Prince EA video. Yeah. I'm going to say that for the very absolute last. So Yep, I'm going to play it last. Prince EA raps about sustainability. Yeah, what you're studying, this guy. This was Agnes Dennis. She planted wheat on the Battery Park landfill. Those of you interested in brownfields and environmental remediation, that's what she planted as a statement. I make pottery. Makes me think about nothing about what I'm doing. It just happens. We can use art to influence people. I don't believe in global warming, and it's flooded. Makes you think. So, to get out of your mental models and stop thinking the way you've always thought, and think about disruptive change. And maybe art will be the thing that does it for you. So I'm going to go back to, let's find that Prince EA. Sustainability is not a thing that you get to. It's a way. And it's a way of looking at life, and it's a way of looking at everyday decisions and adding them up to be a big decision that can change things, change the way the world works. Here's Prince EA. So is there sound?
Yes, just a second. He's working right away.
Samir made it work before, so I'm sure it'll work. Prince EA is an anthropology student.
Yeah, he graduated from University of Missouri. Pretty badass.
You know him?
No, I'm just looking.
Well, I think we should bring him to campus.
That'd be cool. I don't know if he can come.
I think you should.
Future
try.
gen-
He's in Missouri though, so.
Well, we have a travel budget.
Yeah, we just got some sponsorships.
Actually, wow, he's really. He's like,
He talks about sustainability. I think it's a good use of the money. No? Yes? Maybe?
Let's start our Q&A.
Okay.
Somebody struggles.
Yep. So, questions?
How do you change political people? One group saying there is no,
generations. I think I speak for
there is. How do you change people? Like they're stone-headed.
Yes. So there is, I just attended a lecture about how do you change minds. And the person speaking was Catherine Hayhoe. She is a researcher out of Louisiana, and she studies how do you change minds. What she said is that there's 10% of the people that you're never going to change their mind, but there is still 90% that we can work with. Somewhere between 50 and 60% already agree that there's climate change. And so we just have some few that we need to influence them to make up their mind. She said the way to do it is to start with their values. What is it that they think is important? And then if they're affected by forest fires, one would think that that would be the way to speak to them. And if they're affected by flooding, then that's the way to speak to them.
They know it causing, but they don't want to speak up.
Right. And education is interesting. You can tell somebody about something, but until they actually learn it for themselves, it's Yes, yeah. So you have to get them beyond just educated, but motivated. And that's what I'm trying to do with the socks and with the granola bars, is to get you to think about every single action that you do every day to say, is this sustainable? There's some easy ones. You use a water bottle. That's an easy one. But there's others that are not so easy. Sustainable food is one of the issues. Sustainable clothing is another issue. They're an everyday decision. What do you choose? Is it working? Maybe? No. Yeah.
Dear future generations, I think I speak.
Okay. So other questions. You're right. How do you change minds? What's another question that you have?
If I can add to that, like
Okay.
I still think education is the way to go.
Mhm.
Like obviously, if you look at the baby boomers generation, what percentage of people went to college versus this generation? What are you, like, millennials or Generation Z? Millennials are Generation Y, right?
Yes.
So you guys are almost all
Involve
millennials.
younger people to move on, something to change the older people.
Well, I think,
When I-
so to me,
It's change,
the younger people have already changed. I have so many apps on my phones that my students have
Sorry.
told me about and that I use now. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. Yep, that's why I looked at it, Chris. And saving food. Like there's a whole bunch of food waste apps. Who knew there were food waste apps? Interesting. There's the group of students that have sued the government over climate change.
They're like kids,
Yeah.
10, 11
Yeah.
to
There's the group of students that are not going to classes on Fridays, dropping out and
Dear
going
future-
to protest about climate change. If we don't solve climate change, we can't solve anything else. There's the people that have said, okay, we won't use plastic straws. I don't think plastic straws are going to change the world, but plastic straws might be the gateway drug that gets you to then get rid of plastic bags and then get rid of plastic bottles and then look at the circular economy for plastics. That's where we need to change. To make it easier and more convenient to do the right thing.
Yeah, like again, one of the things is that you should never give up, but I think somebody should give up now. Whatever you tried last time, it's not working.
Yes.
Just sort of an observation. I think try to influence effects of simply sustaining yourself and having more control of that. Growing your own food, or at least knowing enough about your food, gives you some immediate impact, right?
Yeah.
I think that's something we need to do every day, every single day. We think about our food, and that's so powerful.
Well, and
Food,
also,
water, and of course our air. I think those are the
Right.
things. For me, I think that's the thing.
so food is interesting because 40% of our food is wasted. And when it goes to the landfill, it creates methane that is 23 times the greenhouse gas warming than carbon dioxide. So if you can simply plan your meals, eat what it is you buy, not waste food, you have
Dear
already
future
made
generations.
a huge impact.
Just eating less, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's probably the most immediate thing.
But we also have to think about, in Newark, how can we bring fresh fruits and vegetables into food deserts? We have to think about the social issues and that social foundation. And that has to be a piece of not just us controlling our food, but making sure there's enough food for everybody. Patterson schools, kids were not, so in Patterson schools, 100% of the kids get free breakfast and free lunch because poverty is rampant. So they were wasting a lot of food. They saw food in a garbage can.
That's the place.
How did,
Waste food in there, but they cannot be taken back.
That's the regulation involved.
Right. So how did they address the food waste issue? Instead of issuing the student apples on Monday, oranges on Tuesday, bananas on Wednesday, they put out all the fruit every day and gave them a choice. Students ate what they chose instead of wasting what they were issued. They were given a choice. What kind of milk did they want? They chose, and it got in the kid, which was the most important thing, because a child who's hungry is not learning. So there's things that we can do at the local level. It's not going to happen, right? So we're just not going to, it's just ignore it. It's not going to happen. You have to do this at home. Listen to Prince EA.
Yeah, it's up there. All right, let's thank Jill for